Business insurance. Did you give me an eye roll or let out a loud sigh? Well, if you did, don't worry. Today we are digging into all things business insurance. GL, PL, alphabet soup. What do these acronyms all mean and why do we need them? We're going to answer the questions. Did you start your business and wonder if you really need insurance? And do you need workers' compensation? How does your state mandate that? What about auto insurance? Like when you go to market, whether it's Vegas, Dallas, or Atlanta, it matters. And do you have employees or subcontractors? What coverage do you need for them? What insurance do you actually need? And what are we missing with insurance as an entire design industry? My guest today is covering all this and more. Meet Steve Wisocky. Steve is the founder and president of Home Furnishings Insurance Group and has over 40 years of experience as a property and casualty insurance broker. With a home furnishings background beginning in 1986, no, I'm not doing the math for you. It's long enough. He has become a trusted insurance advisor for many of the industry's top retailers, suppliers, representatives, and designers. Today, HFIG is the only interior design society insurance partner. He spends much of his time attending industry meetings and conventions. In fact, you've probably seen him at High Point. He's there every April and October. In this week's colorful question, well, let's see if it's yours. Stay tuned to find out as we join the conversation with Steve. Hey, Steve, welcome to the show.
Hi, Katie. How are you?
Good. We're so glad to have you aboard. And this topic is one that we know we need to have, and yet sometimes it's a little overwhelming. It's a little daunting, and us creative types go, oh, insurance, and we take our no-dos and we do what everyone says and we get it, but we don't know if we've got the right one or enough or whatever. So today we're going to pull on our big girl panties and we're going to do the hard work and we're going to figure out and we're going to crack the nut on insurance.
Okay.
Let's do insurance for interior designers.
I do.
Let's start with all the acronyms. GL, PL, auto, workers' comp, all of it. If I'm an interior designer, what do I need?
Okay. The main thing that any prudent business person needs for any type of business is general liability insurance. Okay. General liability insurance, to explain it a little bit better, is I'm going to read this off of my notes so I don't miss any of the important points. Okay.
All the fine print. Yes. Go ahead.
Exactly. All right. General liability insurance is insurance coverage that protects you, the insured, against claims or lawsuits filed by clients or third parties resulting from your negligence, which causes bodily injury or property damage. Okay, so those are all the main points. It's a third-party type coverage, so someone else has to get injured as a result of your negligence. One of the main points is I bring up that I say that it's a claim or a lawsuit. A claim for general liability amounts to anyone that you injure or damage their property that says to you, how are you going to fix this? It's basically a demand for money. When someone asks, says, hey, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to fix this? Anything like that. I want $10,000, anything like that. It's a demand for money. So that is actually a claim that can be filed for under your business, under your general liability insurance coverage. General liability insurance is for those unforeseen accidents, situations where you don't have what we call care, custody, or control of a situation. It's for those lawsuits or claims that are accidents, and by the term accidents. So I think that answered your question, I hope.
It does. I love to play a game when we have experts on, especially in very specific arenas, whether it's an attorney or an accountant, or in this case, insurance. I like to play the but game. So, but Steve, I just started my business and I can't afford general liability insurance yet. Do I really have to have it?
Yes, absolutely.
Why? I agree, but tell me why.
Because because it does protect you against those unforeseen situations, things that you can't control. If you could control everything, we wouldn't
I
need
wish.
insurance. Yeah, exactly right. That's right.
That'd be a
That's
great
right.
life.
That's right. But it's those unforeseen situations. Let's talk about interior designers, okay?
Yeah.
What types of exposures that they have. Okay.
Yeah.
If some designers have offices either in a public building or in their own home, okay, where
Sure.
customers may come to visit them, look at different samples, look at their plans for redecorating their house or designing their home. When they come into the home or into an office, there could be a situation where they might slip and fall. Okay,
Yeah.
the customer
Yeah.
trips over the dog. You'll see trips over the dog, or trips over a stool that's in their way, or simply falls over something on the way to the office in a public building.
Yeah.
And that designer could get named in that lawsuit or have a claim against them. Okay.
Yep.
That happens not too often, okay? But the main thing is that what designers do is that they go to customers' homes. Okay,
Yeah.
so you go into a customer's home to meet with the customer, husband, wife, whatever, and let's say you get the job and now you're going to do some measuring. Okay, you got
Sure.
to measure some things.
Very
So you
plausible.
go into the home and you start measuring, and all of a sudden, accidentally, again, keep in mind, it has to be an accident.
Yeah.
You knock over an expensive family heirloom vase, okay, that
I
costs...
just cringe thinking about it, but yes.
Yeah, exactly. That costs...
Nobody wants to think about this.
That's right. And they come back and they say, hey, Katie, let's, you got to pay for that. And it's a family heirloom and it's $10,000 and so on.
It
and
came
so
from
forth.
China and it's precious
That's
and
right.
all the
Yep.
things, and you're having a
that's
heart
right.
attack.
Yeah, my great grandmother had it, and
Right.
and all that.
It's the
all that
Fabergé
neat
egg
stuff.
of the family. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So that's a property damage claim, and that would be covered under general liability insurance. Okay.
Okay.
Now let's get something straight though, so you
Yeah.
understand. This is the interesting part of general liability insurance, is that
Okay.
we said that anything that's in your care, custody, or control would not be considered an accident. So let's look at that vase. The vase, you grab the vase, right,
Okay.
and you're going to move it so you don't bump into it. And so you grab the vase and you're moving it to put it on another table and you drop it. Okay?
Yeah.
That's not covered. Okay?
But
Because that
Steve,
was,
I
know.
just paid for general liability.
That's
what do you
right.
mean it's not covered?
Yeah, because it's a
Control.
situation of care, custody, or control. Okay, you were controlling it. Okay, so
Okay,
it
so
wasn't-
what
wasn't
insurance do
considered
I
an
need
accident.
for that? Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There really isn't anything that can cover something like that.
I'm paying for the vase at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Ugh.
Yeah. Two other situations that designers run into. Okay, one is subcontractors. Okay,
Yep.
you have a subcontractor that comes in
Very
and is
common.
doing some painting, and accidentally spills a can of paint on the new Oriental rug you just put in for the client.
Sure.
Okay, so the client wants to get reimbursed for that. So that would be a covered situation. Now, something to keep in mind as a designer is whenever you do business with any type of a subcontractor, okay,
Yeah.
painting, whatever it may be, installing a kitchen, putting in a new bathroom, delivering furniture.
That's a big one.
The warehouse delivery people. You need to make sure that they have general liability insurance. Okay,
Yes, you
so so we don't. Our policy will cover, a general liability policy will cover you, the insured, but it won't cover the subcontractor. Okay, but so if the client
So
comes
I
back
want
and says,
everyone to hear what Steve just said, because I think this is so incredibly important. When you get general liability, did you hear what he said? It only covers you. It does not cover your subcontractors. if something goes wrong. This is why in our firm we require that every sub produce a COI or certificate of insurance before they go out. I'm glad to see you smiling because it's not always fun to get.
Yeah,
but
the COI, you're
a
pretty
COI,
much an expert, you know.
Oh my gosh,
fees.
not even. No, but I know enough to know that if you don't have a COI, you're not going on our job.
There you
because
go. Exactly.
if your sub does something on that job and you don't have a COI to hand over to your insurance company and they were your sub, guess what? All of a sudden, it's back on you. And that's
right.
enough of a motivator for me to go find their COI or not let them on my job site.
Perfect. Exactly right. Exactly
Right? Because, and I think,
Yep.
and it comes down to every single entity going out on that site. And we've even had times, photographers are a big one,
Yes.
where they do a ton of residential real estate and they're like, oh, I'm good. I'm great. I'm going to go out. I'm going to photograph this house. I'll be 100% fine. And you go, where's your COI? And they go, I've never gotten a request for that. And I'm like, to your point about the family heirloom, that's all good and fine until you're backing up in the living room to get the better angle and you knock over that vase. And now I'm responsible for that because I don't have your COI to give to my insurance company so they can go after your insurance company, which sounds really horrible. But this is what happens in the world of insurance. This is why we have insurance, right?
That's right. That's business. Simple
It's
as
business.
that. Yeah,
it is business. And I think that's the key point too. It's such a good point. Like it may not be something fun and it's not beautiful and it's not our next mood board, but you're not going to be around to create your next mood board if you're going to have to write a check for 10 grand for the missing heirloom. And so we just have to pay for this. Talk to me about the difference though between that and professional liability. So we have general liability or GL as it's often called in the industry. And then we have PL.
PL. Okay.
Yeah.
Professional
Why do we need
liability-
PL if we have GL? Yeah.
Well, because they're contradict. Well, let's put it this way: general liability has an exclusion in it
Okay.
for professional liability. In other words, we're going to exclude anything that is
it
considered
does?
a
That's
professional
a little
liability
secret.
claim. Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
and then
nobody's ever
professional
told me that
liability
before.
has the same exclusion going back to general liability. If it's considered a general liability claim, then it's not going to be covered under professional liability. Professional liability basically says, again, any negligence from any bodily injury or property damage that you may cause that is in a professional nature. Okay, professional nature, very broad. Is there a
Yeah.
definition? Not really.
Yeah, it's like
but at
nailing
the
Jello
same
to the
time-
wall. What does it mean?
Exactly, and it's also considered what we term it as errors and omissions. Okay, and that's the right term to use in the interior design society. Okay,
Yeah.
or industry, is that you can make an error in measuring.
Sure.
You can make a different error in ordering. I always like to use the situation. Okay, Katie, you're my designer, and you and
Yep.
I agree that you're going to redesign, refurnish my home, my living room,
Okay.
and you're going to buy a black leather sectional sofa, okay? And you go back to your
Sure.
office and you order it, okay?
Yep.
Comes in a few weeks later, and turns out, oh, geez, this isn't what I ordered. It's a white upholstered sofa. Right?
Right.
Well, I don't want that. Katie, you got to eat that. And that's what errors and omissions would cover, a situation like that. And that's what I
Gotcha. So
see all the time in professional
Okay, here comes
liability.
another but Steve. But Steve, is it going to cost me more to file a claim on my errors and omissions insurance than it is to just eat the cost of the sofa at this point?
No, not
I feel
really.
like no.
But
Okay, tell me more.
There's no deductibles on professional
Oh.
liability. There's no deductibles on general liability either. Professional liability usually costs, depending on the state that you're in. Okay, it's very provincial in terms of its rates. New York, very high.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, very high. A lot of lawsuits, a lot of attorneys, all that kind of stuff. Allentown, Pennsylvania, half the price of something in Philadelphia.
Wow, they're just not having the claim history.
Exactly. So, most of the time you'll see that ranging in costs from $500 a year and depending how big your firm is, to about $1,000 a year. But the average I've seen across the country is about $700 a year for $1 million of professional liability. Now I offer,
Okay.
I'm going to do a little ad here, our general liability insurance, okay,
Yeah.
for $1 million of coverage is only $250 a year. Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's what we have to offer.
Is that
through-
regardless of how you're set up, like as an LLC or if you're an Inc., or it doesn't matter?
That's exactly right. Does not matter. Does not matter. And it does not matter where you are. Okay, you could
need
be
to
in
talk
New
to
York
you
City,
after this call.
and you could be in
Yeah.
Allentown, Pennsylvania. It doesn't matter. It's $250 a year, and that's through the buying power of the Interior Design Society that we're able to
Yeah.
get those type of rates.
We
Yeah,
love
so-
IDS. We're proud members. They do great work. They're good people, and they represent the good people, which is a great
Absolutely.
thing as well.
Yep, definitely.
Okay. But Steve, do I need workers' compensation?
Well, workers' compensation is coverage for your employees. If an employee is injured on the job, that's what workers' comp would cover: their health, their medical bills, and any type of disability that they may have. Every state is different. It's what we call a statutory coverage. It's written according to whatever the state law is as far as benefits are concerned. Pennsylvania is very broad. We have full coverage on medical, and they get 66% of their salary while they're off
Wow.
on leave, from their job. Other states are less, 50%. Some states don't offer. Depends on where you are. But at the same time, it's really only if you have employees. If you don't have employees, then you don't need workers' compensation. So
Well, and here's a really interesting little tip that I learned the hard way. So I'm in Washington State, kept trying to get workers' compensation, and was required by one of my clients, and which is fine. Went round and around and around and around with so many different insurance agencies, and no one would tell me why I couldn't get it. And I'm like, I swear to you, I'm a good upstanding business over here. I've done my part and I play nice in society. Why can I not get workers' compensation? I'm trying to give you money.
Yeah.
And there's this crazy situation where there's 5 states in the country, Washington
Yes.
being one of them, I learned. So if you're having the same problem, I'm here to save you the legwork, where you have to go through the state and it doesn't go to the fair market. So you cannot go out to a fair market bidding process. I have to contract with the Labor and Industry Department of the state of Washington to get my workers' compensation, and I have no alternative. So if you're like been trying, or if you ever run down that path, tuck that little nugget away for a rainy day and be like, am I one of those 5 states?
Right.
Because I spent a lot of time before I figured it out, and someone finally said, well, you know why, right? I'm like, no one can tell me why. Thank you. That means a lot. So if
Yeah,
we're looking
well,
at, oh, go ahead.
that's what we call in insurance talk, or in the industry, is a monopolistic state.
I
Monopolistic.
agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So it's Washington and Ohio, not only the other 5 states, but the other 3 states. But those are the 2.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing. Okay, what other insurances, once we unpack all the different types, we're going to talk about the different setups of your organization. Like if it's just you, you need this. If it's you and a couple contractors, you probably need this. I just want to give that hierarchical view. But before we do, are there any other insurances that we're missing? Auto being one of them, if you have a company car, that we should probably visit about.
Correct.
This is one that comes up for us, even though we don't have a company car per se. Anytime we take a car out on a job site, they want to know we're covered in some regard.
Exactly. You should have a coverage under automobile,
Yep.
which is called hired and non-owned auto. Hired automobile
one.
liability is covered for when you rent or lease a vehicle. Like you said, go to the High Point Market, you go to the Vegas Market, you rent a vehicle, you would be covered under that policy for liability. You still may have to buy the physical damage on that vehicle, okay, the comp and collision from the company, from
Now we're back to
Hertz
that
or
laws
Avis
again.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the liability coverage is covered under that policy. Now, it also covers the hired
Yeah.
auto liability, which is important, would cover if the subcontractor that's delivering furniture for you, the third party, has an accident. Okay.
Oh.
And for some reason they found out, or the customer found out, that they were delivering for you as a designer and could get named in that lawsuit. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be the hired auto liability coverage that would pick that up and cover you for that situation.
That makes sense. That's the only one that picks up your subcontractors, though. That's really important to note. Listen to what Steve's saying. It's hired and non-owned auto only. Your GL does not cover your subs. That's why they need to produce their own certificate of insurance before you let them on their job.
Non-owned liability is a situation if you had employees. Okay?
Yep.
And let's say you're a bookkeeper or had to run to the bank, had an accident during work time, and the firm or your company would get sued as a result of it. So that's not ownership. Not a big exposure, but at the same time, they kind of come together. Hired.
I was going to say, I've never seen them apart, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've talked GL, PL, workers' comp, auto. Are there any other insurances that are critical for designers to be aware of?
If you have, again, we go back to if you have employees. I think
that's a big one.
The key coverage right now, which is big in society with the Me Too movement and all that stuff, is employment practices liability, which covers you against your, like it says, employment practices. An employee comes back and says that they were harassed sexually, or they were harassed by someone in the office or something like that. If you discriminate, that would be covered under that. If you for termination, wrongful termination is another big item under employment practices liability that you should carry, why you should carry it. And age discrimination, race discrimination.
There's so many of them.
Like that. Yeah, exactly. I didn't get the job, because I was 75 years old. They come back and sue you, or you get terminated because you're 75 years old, and they come back and sue you as a result of that. That's what employment practices liability would cover. So if you have employees, definitely look at getting that coverage. And then going hand in hand with that, if you have employees and you have a staff doing your books and a bookkeeper and all that good accounting stuff, is employee dishonesty. Okay, someone gets into your checkbook and they start writing checks, and all of a sudden you're a bunch of money in the hole, and it's an employee stealing from you. So that's what employee dishonesty would cover. So something to consider.
So that's a whole other policy, employee dishonesty policy.
That's right. Yep.
Interesting. Do either of these have a deductible, the employee dishonesty or the
employment practices liability will have a deductible.
Okay.
Depending on the size of the firm, it would probably be the lowest you'd see is $1,000, and then you could buy up to $10,000 depending on what you want to, what you feel comfortable with. And
that is one where so that deductible is what you're paying out of pocket before the insurance policy kicks in. It doesn't exist for the GL and the PL, but it does exist for these two.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And there's no deductible on workers' compensation, and no deductible on the hired and non-owned automobile that we spoke of.
Okay, those are all zero deductible. Well, and it's interesting they tack on a deductible to this, because I feel like these two policies you're mentioning are ones that have come about in the last, I'm going to guess, 10 to 15 years. That's just a hunch. But it's become part of, as there's a societal shift, there's going to be an insurance policy to match it. But there's probably so many of these, kind of like car wrecks. This is why we have a deductible, because it's such a common occurrence.
Right. No, that's exactly right. When employment practices liability insurance first came out, like you said, like 15 years ago or so, it's probably a little bit longer than that. It came out originally when the American Disabilities Act was put in force. And what you saw was employees that were injured or had disabilities, and they couldn't get into the buildings, or they had, they couldn't go to the bathroom properly. And, attorneys got a hold of that. And all of a sudden, employment practices liability came about. So when an insurance coverage first comes about, you'll see the cost of it being very high.
For sure. Yeah. Probably because they just don't have the metrics yet to know what's a fair market value,
That's
right?
Exactly right. That's right.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
So
that's what happened. Now it's we saw employment practices liability over the years go down in costs, and then when something
Finally,
else
insurance
happens,
going down, Steve. Can we just
There you
enjoy
go.
that moment? Anybody else had their insurance go down
really.
lately?
Yeah,
Not me.
that's right.
Not in any regard.
No, definitely not. But at the same time, they then all of a sudden the Me Too hit, and all of a sudden the rates start going up again.
Yeah,
because
it's just market
weren't-
reflective.
Yeah, something that they weren't thinking about or expecting or whatever. So that can always affect your insurance rates. But we always have to remember, Katie, that insurance companies are not for profits.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
They're
I was
not-
hoping they'd
not
be
for
a
profits.
nonprofit, but they
There
are
we go.
not. Well,
Not
most of them are
nonprofits.
even traded, aren't they? I mean, aren't most of them
That's
on the
right.
index? I mean, these are
Absolutely.
big
They're public
companies doing.
Yep. The Hartford, Travelers.
There
yep.
you go.
Yeah.
I mean,
big
they're all
companies.
there and they're in the interest of making profit. So let me ask you, if I'm going to be smart about the dollars I'm going to give them, because we know they're all profit, they'd sell us all the possible policies in the world. But let's start out. It's just me. I'm starting out on my own. Steve, out of all these, I think we're up to 6 or 7 policy different types we've discussed now. What are the ones I need if it's just me, no employees, and I'm just hanging out my shingle and figuring this out?
Yeah, exactly. I get those calls probably 2 or 3 times a week.
There you go.
Yep. And the main coverage, as we started with the conversation, is general liability.
Sure.
And at $250 a year
You can afford
for
this.
my policy,
Yeah.
you got to afford it. $20 a month?
Yeah.
Crazy. It's great.
That's more
It
than a
really
lot of
is.
subscriptions we pay
Yeah,
for
you
design
can-
software.
If you went to another agent across the street or
Yeah.
in town or whatever, that policy is going to be double. Okay, I could guarantee you that because because insurance companies usually write minimum premium policies. Okay, so the minimum premium for a general liability policy standalone is $500. Okay, where we chop it in half at $250 because of, again, the group buying power of the Interior Design Society.
Nice.
So, and then what I normally would explain to a designer that's just starting out like that, I'd say, you got to get this. Okay,
Yep.
you got to have this general liability. And
Right.
then we go into the professional liability. We discuss the errors and omissions coverage, and then we let that as an elective type situation.
Yep.
What makes you sleep at night, Katie? You feel better?
As
with,
I'm getting
you know,
older,
buying the
Steve, it's a good
$500?
insurance policy.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Whatever
I mean, it
makes
used
you
to be
sleep
a
better.
lot of other things in my youth, but now we're just down to good insurance and great health care. That's all
There
I
you
got.
go. That's right, isn't it? Oh gosh.
Oh, it's
but yeah,
so true.
that's the world we live in. You know,
It is.
and-
Okay, so
yeah.
let's say I've graduated and I now have a couple
Okay.
of subcontractors working for me.
Oh boy. Mhm.
How does that change things? They're not just delivering furniture, but maybe they're subcontractors doing some of my design work. And I now have a bookkeeper doing 5 hours a week who's a subcontractor, who's actually working in my business, not just, I don't want to say but they're not just delivering the furniture, they're actively involved. Does that change my liability? And do I need a different additional policy?
Yeah,
you're
gonna have to buy a different liability policy.
Okay.
For a firm like that, what you're talking about, you want to get higher limits. You want to make sure that you have more exposures. I mean, definitely with the subcontractors and things like that. You still want to get those COIs. Okay.
Yeah,
But
that's a key
we have
word.
to build a better program for you in that situation. Yeah.
That makes complete
The
sense.
250 isn't right for you.
No, we have too much liability, so we need
That's
more coverage at that point.
That's right. Yeah, you want to buy
So the
higher
tipping-
than the million. So
Yeah,
$1 million
that makes sense.
Coverage. Yeah.
And if I'm hearing you right, it feels like the tipping point in this whole, I don't want to call it a game, but an insurance game, is once you bring on employees. When you bring on employees, we're in a whole different ball game for
Changes
now
all
all of a sudden everything. We're talking about workers' comp. We're talking about employee discrimination policies.
Yep.
Potentially, we're talking about. I mean, you're going to add at minimum 3 additional policies. It sounds like to me once you hire that first
when you're going
employee.
to bring on additional designers,
Okay.
you're going to want to buy professional liability
Yeah.
to cover the firm. because really you don't know what those other designers are doing. I mean, they could
They
be
can
the
forget
best.
stuff.
Yeah, you could be
Sure.
the best of
We're
friends.
all human.
They're not going to. They don't do things the way you do things. Okay, and you do things better than
It's your
anybody else.
firm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Workers' compensation, for sure, and then employment practices liability. Definitely, yeah. I would get those coverages.
Which can sound really scary, especially if you're just starting out, but it really shouldn't, because as your business grows, you're going to be able to afford those additional coverages that come alongside it. What I really love about this.
Right?
Yeah. I know I once had an
Congratulations.
accountant say that to me. I was like,
There
I
you
was
go.
paying how much to the government? And she goes, you should be proud you're paying this much to the
That's
government because
right.
it means you're making this much. And I was like,
That's right.
it still feels really gross to me, but okay.
I know.
Sure. We'll
Yeah.
go with that.
Yeah.
But no, it's true. And I think that's like a key point. As you grow, your insurance coverage should grow right alongside you. So you're not sitting here with a baby policy when your business is no longer at inception. You're 5 years down the path. These need to keep pace.
Bingo. Yep. Agreed.
Best insurance story ever. I want to hear. Could be comical. Could be. I want to hear
Okay.
your best interior design story, because this can be a dry topic. I think this has been a great conversation, but I am dying to hear because you've been in this for decades.
Well, I'm gonna nothing real exciting in its interior design area. Because
good. We're a pretty
there is
solid
exposure.
industry, we like to think.
Yeah, knock on
You know.
wood.
Yeah.
That's all good. That's all good.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you about the craziest liability claim that I ever had.
What happened? Oh, I'm dying to hear it.
I insure a yogurt ice cream type store. It has a number of stores throughout the state of Pennsylvania, and this one happened to be out in State College, Pennsylvania, out in Penn State. Okay,
Sure.
And springtime, everybody's buying yogurt ice cream coming in the store. Gentleman comes by with his dog, and takes the dog and he ties him up to one of the chairs that they have outside. They put little tables
Yes.
outside with the chairs
Oh,
and the
no.
umbrellas so you can eat your yogurt and things like
Yeah.
that. Gentleman goes into the yogurt store, and all of a sudden he hears this rumbling, and here what happened was the dog took off with the chair. Okay? So the dog's running down the street with the
This is
chair.
great.
Runs
Yeah.
across the street, and there's
No.
a lady and her daughter, little girl, standing across the street. It's kind of sad, because what happened was that the dog runs by and the chair hits the little girl, and knocks her over.
Is she okay?
She was okay, but do you know what her mother's occupation was?
Attorney?
That's exactly right.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. So,
This
I
isn't
think
going to go
I think
well.
that's the best one. I think that's
Yeah.
the best one. That's not so bad. I mean, I could tell you
No,
some
it's
pretty
not
gross
gory.
ones.
So
but-
did she, and then this is what's a key point, is she didn't go after the dog owner. She went after the yogurt shop.
That's exactly right.
And so that's where, if you're thinking this doesn't apply, very much applies. Even though
Yeah.
it was, I want to use a kind term, but the irresponsible dog owner who left their dog attached to a chair.
That's right.
We don't know the size. I mean, if it's a Great Dane, that's not your brightest day, right? But
Right.
if it's a Yorkie, I get it. Either way, left the dog attached to the chair. And now the onus isn't on the dog owner for that decision, but
No.
because he was frequenting that business, such
Yep.
as your establishment, now you're liable for it.
That's right.
And that's why you pick up the phone
That's right.
and you call Steve.
Because they went right to the yogurt store. You know what I
That's
mean?
insane.
That's how I found out about it. And we had to file a claim as a result of it. That's
that's
who they looked
absolutely
at.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
so anyway.
incredible. Great story. Great conversation, Steve. One final question for you. What is one thing you feel like designers always miss or don't see when it comes to insurance? What is our blind spot as an industry when it comes to insurance? Let's just have the honest conversation and throw it out there.
I think it's just a matter of not wanting to pay for it.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
what I see as the blind
Yeah.
spot.
Very fair.
Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and that's one where
I can't afford it. Oh, I can't.
Yep.
Oh, I don't need it, and I can't afford it. But that's why we did what we do with Interior Design Society is make it affordable.
I think that's brilliant. And that's one thing we coach to too, is it's CDB. CDB, 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 cost of doing business. There are just these costs if you're going to be in business, because if you don't pay them, you're not going to be in business.
That's right.
If you're on the receiving end of that lawsuit and you don't have your proper legal structure set up, like we talked about with David Adler, and we'll put the link to that in the show notes to this episode. If you don't have your accounting practices in order, like we talked about with Kate Snelson, and we'll put the link to that episode in our show notes, you're not going to be in business. And if you don't have insurance to go back to, and you have to write that check out of pocket because you don't have the money in the bank, or you're not properly structured, or you don't have an insurance policy, you're not going to be in business. And I hate saying that, but all it takes is one episode like that for you to not only lose your business, but to lose your personhood financially. And that's like, I know this isn't the sexiest topic and we're not all sitting here drinking champagne, but it is incredibly important if you're actually in the business of building a business, which is more than just designing.
Right. And we talk about, your business and all that, but the other thing that we missed in your description was perfect, but it's your reputation.
No, so true. It's absolutely your reputation.
Yeah, it's your reputation, and that rises above all else, I think. So,
boy, isn't that the truth? People talk. It doesn't matter if you're in LA, New York, or if you're in, podunk, middle of nowhere, Montana, which I can use because that's my home state.
Downtown Pennsylvania. Yep.
Downtown. There you go. I mean, it is your reputation. And I think it's everything. To try to resurrect that, I mean, we see it with celebrities all the time, right?
Yeah.
It is so incredibly difficult to get that brand back when it is your brand and your image. It's just not worth playing Russian roulette with.
Not worth it. Yeah.
Especially for $20 a month if you're just starting out. Just saying. Okay, great conversation. Thank you, Steve. So glad the little girl wasn't hurt. Thanks for bringing this topic to life for us, making it real, but also making it doable financially and then just from an understanding perspective. What a great conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
In today's colorful question, a great one coming in from Christy out of Texas, wondering, hey, Katie, do you coach commercial designers? I'm so glad you asked. Yes, I coach to both, and here's the reason why. When I started my firm back in 2007, I did residential design for nearly 3 years before I segued into commercial design. So depending on where you're at, whether you're in residential and you're looking to navigate to commercial, or you want to you've been in commercial and you want to run your firm like a firm, you want to scale, you want to grow, and you want to do it smart, we can talk about either one. I'd be happy to have the conversation with you. We'll put a link in the show notes so you can book a strategy session with me. P.S. and insider secrets here, we do discount 3 strategy sessions. And if you're a member of the studio, our virtual space with all the resources you need to run your business, we give you an unlimited discount on all strategy sessions with me. I'd love to see you inside.